Hello students, welcome to another video. This video on heredity and evolution is brought to you by AT Square, Crystal Clear Concepts. In this video, we will talk about evolution. The gradual changes taking place in living organisms giving rise to new organisms due to changes in the genetic composition is called evolution. Or evolution is change in the heritable characteristics of biological populations over successive generations. Now let us understand these definitions with the help of a few examples and situations. First, the peppered moth evolution. Let us go back to the time of Industrial Revolution. Biston Betullaria typica, commonly called light-colored pepper moth, were able to blend in with the light-colored lichens and tree bark, while the less common black moth, that is Biston Betullaria carbonaria, were more likely to be eaten by birds. As a result of the common light-colored lichens and English trees, the light-colored moths were much more effective at hiding from predators. In this picture, we see Biston Betullaria typica and carbonaria on the same tree. The light-colored typica is nearly invisible on this pollution-free tree, camouflaging it from predators. Before Industrial Revolution, the black-peppered moth were rare because the trees were light-colored. They were black and were easily spotted by predators, while the white moths easily blended. But during the early decades of Industrial Revolution in England, the countryside between London and Manchester became blanketed with soot from new coal-burning factories. Many of the light-bodied lichens died from sulfur dioxide emissions and the trees became darkened. This led to an increase in bird predations for light-colored moth as they no longer blended in, as well as their polluted ecosystem. Indeed, their bodies now dramatically contrasted with the color of the bark. Dark-colored moths, on the other hand, were camouflaged very well by the blackened trees. By the mid-19th century, the number of dark-colored moths had risen noticeably, and by 1895, the percentage of dark-colored moths in Manchester was reported at 98%, a dramatic change from the original frequency. This is an example of phenotypic variation in a species and evolution through something called natural selection. Evolution is the process of change in all forms of life over generations. And evolutionary biology is the study of evolution. Charles Darwin is considered as the father of evolutionary biology. He is also the author of a book named Origin of Species. He also gave the theory of natural selection. Charles Darwin set off from England for a 5-year voyage or expedition. Although he suffered from seasickness, he wrote down all of his observations and findings. After surveying the coast of America, the ship HMS Beagle stopped once in the Galapagos Island. Darwin's visit to the Galapagos Island had a resounding impact on the formation of his theory of natural selection. Among those that struck Darwin so greatly were the finches that are now named in his honor as Darwin's finches. On his visit to the Galapagos Island, Charles Darwin discovered several species of finches that varied from island to island. Darwin observed variation in the finches. There were marked differences in the beaks in birds of different islands and was according to the food available in the island. Noting differences in the feeding habit of the finches, Darwin wrote that cactus finches may often be seen climbing about the flowers of the great cactus tree. He wrote in his notebook, one might really fancy that one species had been taken and modified for different ends. In other words, beaks changed as the birds developed different tastes for fruits, seeds, or insects picked from ground or cacti. These variations would show how the birds adapted themselves based on the needs of the environment they were in. This forms the basis for natural selection. So now we can say that in order for natural selection to take place, variation should be present in the population. It must stick and pass on to the next generation. As we have seen before, in the case of moth, Environmental changes caused variation of black-colored moths to become superior. They survived better, reproduced better. So natural selection is the differential survival and reproduction of individuals due to differences in phenotype. Charles Darwin defined natural selection as the principle by which each slight variation, if useful, is preserved. Let us take a look at some other illustrations of evolution. Let us consider a group of 9 beetles. They live in some bushes with green leaves. Their population will grow by sexual reproduction and therefore can generate variations. We imagine that crows eat these beetles. The more beetles the crow eats, the fewer beetles are available to reproduce. Now let us consider different situations that can develop in this population of beetle. First, appearance of favorable variation. A color variation arises during reproduction so that there is one beetle that is green in color instead of red. The number of green beetle increases after reproduction. Crows cannot see green colored beetles on the green leaves of the bushes and therefore cannot eat them. The progeny of the green beetle is not eaten while the progeny of the red beetle continues to be eaten. As a result, the population of green beetle increases than the red ones in the beetle population. The origin of green beetles happened by chance, but it had survival benefit to the beetle. Finally, the green beetles could survive and multiplied in the surrounding. Now, let us discuss the second situation, that will be the appearance of an unfavorable variation. In this situation, again, a color variation arises during reproduction, but now it results in a beetle that is blue in color instead of red. The crows can see the blue colored beetles in the green leaves of the bushes as well as they can see the red ones, and therefore they can eat them. Initially, the number of red beetle is more than the blue beetles. But at this point, an elephant comes by and stomps the bushes where the beetles live. This kills most of the beetle. By chance, the few beetles that have survived are mostly blue. The beetle population slowly expands again, but now the beetles in the population are mostly blue. The survival of the beetle was because of an accident, and accident was the cause of natural selection. Now in this situation, we can say genetic drift has happened. Genetic drift occurs when random factors impact the frequency of alleles in subsequent generation of population. Genetic drift reduces genetic variation in population and it has a drastic result on smaller population. Bottleneck events when a large population is suddenly and drastically reduced in size by some event. The genetic variety will be very much reduced. Here, the stomping by elephant was the cause. Infection and extreme climate events are frequent causes. Now, let us discuss the last situation for the illustration, that is appearance of a plant disease. In this situation, as the beetle population begins to expand, the bushes start suffering from a plant disease. The amount of leaf material for the beetle is reduced. Therefore, the beetles are poorly nourished. The average weight of adult beetle decreases due to non-availability of leaves, but there is no genetic change occurring. After a few years and a few beetle generations of such scarcity, the plant disease is eliminated. Therefore, there is a lot of leaf food and weight of the beetle also increases. Here, the change in size was a change in phenotype and hence was not inheritable. Change in size could not produce any variation and evolution in the species. Now, let us take a look at some other aspects under evolution, individuals and population. At the level of individual, the study of genetics shows how traits are transmitted from parents to offspring, enabling a prediction about the chances that any given individual will display some phenotypic characters. At the level of group, the study of genetics takes on additional significance, revealing how evolutionary processes account for the diversity of life on Earth. A key concept in genetics is that of the population or a group of individuals within which breeding takes place. Gene pool refers to all the genetic variants possessed by members of a population. Hence, evolution can also be defined as changes in allele frequencies in population. This is known as microevolution. So, microevolution can be defined as change in allele frequency or change in gene frequency in a population. Imagine we go to a mountaintop this year, sample the bugs and determine that 80% of the genes in the population are for brown coloration and 20% of them are for green. If we go back to the same place the next year, repeat the procedure and find a new ratio, that is 70% brown genes to 30% green genes, we have detected a microevolutionary pattern, that is a change in gene frequency.